My name is Amy, 32 years old, and I never expected to wake up alone in a hospital bed with the taste of blood in my mouth and the sound of machines beeping around me. My body felt like it had been shattered and reassembled wrong. Reaching for my phone was instinct, muscle memory. That is when I saw it. Our family group chat flooded with photos. My sister Vanessa at a spa, cucumber slices on her eyes. My parents smiling with champagne flutes. Nobody had come to see me. Nobody had even asked if I was alive. The betrayal cut deeper than the glass that had sliced my skin in the crash. If you are watching this now, I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to hear stories that might make you feel less alone in your own family struggles. Trust me, what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Before the accident, I had what most people would consider a successful life. I had spent the last 7 years climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago. My spacious downtown apartment overlooked the river, and I had just bought myself a new car to celebrate my recent promotion to senior brand strategist. I had friends, though most were work colleagues I occasionally met for happy hour drinks. I dated, though nothing serious had materialized. My life revolved around my career, and I took pride in that. The promotion had been a particularly sweet victory. I had outperformed 3 other candidates, including one who had been at the company 5 years longer than me. When I called my family to share the news, my mother Helen had been genuinely happy for me. My father Walter had asked about the salary increase and benefits package with his typical pragmatic approach. My sister Vanessa had offered a quick congratulations before steering the conversation to her own news about a potential job offer at a fancy wellness center. That was our family dynamic in a nutshell. My father, the successful business owner who measured everything in quantifiable results. My mother, the eternal diplomat who tried to make sure everyone felt heard. And my sister Vanessa, 3 years younger than me, who had always been the family favorite without even trying. Growing up, Vanessa was the bubbly one with the infectious laugh and natural social skills. I was the serious, studious one who brought home perfect report cards, but few friends. When Vanessa won Homecoming Queen, my parents threw her a party. When I was valedictorian, they took me out to dinner, but spent most of the evening on the phone with relatives discussing Vanessa getting asked to prom by the star quarterback. It was not that they did not love me. I knew they did, in their way. It was more that they did not know what to do with me. My ambition and independence seemed to puzzle them, while Vanessa, with her desire for their approval and validation, was something they understood perfectly. After college, I moved to Chicago while Vanessa stayed in our hometown of Riverside, just 30 minutes outside the city. She married her college boyfriend, Todd, bought a house 3 blocks from our parents, and took a job at a local salon. She had dinner with our parents at least twice a week. I made it home for major holidays and the occasional birthday if my work schedule allowed. In recent months, I had been making more of an effort to reconnect with my family. Something about turning 32 had triggered a reassessment of my priorities. I had started calling my mom weekly instead of monthly. I had even driven out to Riverside for my father's 65th birthday party, although I had to leave early to prepare for a client presentation the next day. Baby steps, but steps nonetheless. The day of the accident started like any other Tuesday. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., went for a 5mm run along the lakefront, showered, and dressed in my power suit for an important client presentation. The forecast had predicted afternoon thunderstorms, but the morning was clear and bright as I headed to the office. The presentation went exceptionally well. Our team had developed a rebranding strategy for a struggling retail chain, and the clients were visibly impressed. My boss had given me an appreciative nod as we wrapped up, which was his equivalent of effusive praise. I felt on top of the world as I packed up my materials and headed to the parking garage at 6:15 p.m. The rain had started by then, coming down in sheets that turned the streets into rivers. I remember thinking I should wait it out, but I had dinner plans with Jessica, a colleague who had become something of a friend over the past year. I texted her that I was on my way and pulled out of the garage. The last clear memory I have is stopping at a red light 2 blocks from the restaurant. I was checking my GPS when I caught a flash of movement in my peripheral vision. Headlights much too close and coming fast. A blue sedan hydroplaning through the intersection, the driver desperately trying to brake. The impact came from my left side, sending my car spinning across the intersection. The airbag deployed in an explosion of white. Then came the secondary impact as my spinning car hit a light pole. Glass shattered. Metal crunched. My head snapped forward, then back. Everything after that comes in fragments. Rain on my face through the broken window. The taste of blood. Someone, a stranger, telling me not to move. That help was coming. The wail of approaching sirens. Hands carefully extricating me from the wreckage. The bumpy ride in the ambulance. Bright hospital lights. Voices asking me questions I could not seem to answer. Then darkness. I awoke to the rhythmic beeping of machines and the antiseptic smell that can only mean one thing: hospital. The room was dimly lit, with morning sunlight filtering through partially closed blinds. For a moment, I could not remember why I was there. Then the pain hit me, a symphony of different agonies playing throughout my body. A nurse entered the room, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her name tag read Patricia. "Good morning, sunshine," she said, checking the monitors beside my bed. "Welcome back to the land of the living. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I croaked, my throat dry and raw. "Close. It was a sedan. You have 3 broken ribs, a fractured tibia, a mild concussion, and enough cuts and bruises to look like you went 10 rounds with a heavyweight champ." Her matter-of-fact delivery somehow made the news easier to take. "The doctor will be in soon to talk to you about everything. You were pretty out of it yesterday when they brought you in." "Yesterday, I had lost an entire day. Has anyone been here, my family?" Patricia's brief hesitation told me everything. "Not that I have seen, but I just came on shift at 6 o'clock a.m. You want me to call someone for you?" "No, I have my phone," I said, spotting it on the bedside table. "Thanks." After Patricia left, I reached for my phone, wincing at the pain that shot through my side with the movement. 3 missed calls from Jessica, my dinner date from the night of the accident. A text from my boss asking about some files. Nothing from my family. I called my mother first. The call went to voicemail. I left a message, trying to sound casual, despite the circumstances. "Hey, Mom. Just letting you know I had a car accident yesterday. I am in Chicago Memorial Hospital. Nothing too serious, but they are keeping me for observation. Room 307, if you want to visit. Love you. Love." Next, I tried my father. Same result. Voicemail. I left essentially the same message. Then Vanessa. Voicemail again. It was 10:02 a.m. on a Wednesday. Dad would be at his office. Mom volunteering at the library. Vanessa at the salon. Still, I had expected at least one of them to pick up. I scrolled through my other notifications, mostly work emails I did not have the energy to deal with. That is when I accidentally opened our family group chat. And there they were, dozens of photos from what appeared to be a spa weekend at Lake Geneva, one of those luxury resorts about an hour from Chicago. There was Vanessa getting a facial, cucumber slices covering her eyes. My mother having her nails done. My father looking uncomfortable but smiling in a fluffy white robe. The 3 of them at dinner, raising glasses in a toast. More spa treatments. A boat ride on the lake. All time stamped from the previous day and that morning. While I had been unconscious in a hospital bed, my family had been enjoying a luxury spa retreat. Not one of them had mentioned my absence from the group chat. Not one of them had apparently wondered why I was not responding. Or worse, they had noticed and simply did not care enough to check on me. I scrolled back further, looking for any indication that this had been a long-planned event that I had somehow forgotten about. Nothing. The last message I had sent to the group was 3 days earlier, sharing a funny meme about coffee addiction. My father had responded with a thumbs-up emoji, my mother with a laughing face. Vanessa had not responded at all. Perhaps they did not know how serious the accident was. Perhaps they thought I was just busy with work as usual. Perhaps someone had called the hospital and been given incorrect information. I came up with a dozen possible explanations, each less convincing than the last. I fired off a text to the group, in Chicago Memorial after bad car accident yesterday. Room 307, if anyone wants to visit. Probably here for a few days at least. Then I put the phone down and waited. 10 minutes passed. 20, an hour. No response. Nurse Patricia returned to check my vitals and help me to the bathroom, a humbling experience that involved a walker and more pain than I care to remember. "Still no visitors?" she asked, helping me back into bed. "They are probably on their way," I lied, not wanting her pity. "My family lives in Riverside, so it is a bit of a drive." Patricia nodded, but I could tell she did not believe me. "Well, you just rest up. Doctor will be in to see you after lunch. Left alone again, I checked my phone. A text had come through from my mother. Oh, sweetie, that is terrible. We are at Lake Geneva for a spa weekend. Vanessa won it in a raffle at work. We will try to come see you when we get back tomorrow. Do you need anything? No mention of cutting their trip short. No real concern about my condition. Just a vague promise to visit tomorrow and an afterthought question about my needs. I did not reply. What could I say? Yes, I need you to act like my hospitalization matters more than your mud wraps and hot stone massages. Yes, I need you to be parents who drop everything when their child is injured. Yes, I need to matter. Dr. Lewis came by that afternoon, a brisk woman in her 40s, who explained my injuries and treatment plan in clear, concise terms. The broken ribs would heal on their own in about 6 weeks, but I would need to be careful not to develop pneumonia. The leg fracture was clean and had been set while I was unconscious, but I would need physical therapy and would be on crutches for at least a month. The concussion symptoms should fade within a week or two. Any questions? She asked, already halfway to the door. When can I go home? We want to keep you another day or two for observation. Make sure there are no complications from the concussion. Do you have someone who can stay with you when you are discharged? You will need help for the first week at least. I thought about my empty apartment, my family at their spa retreat. Yes, I lied. My family. That night was one of the longest of my life. The pain medication made me groggy, but did not put me to sleep. Every time I started to drift off, I would shift position and pain would jolt me awake again. The hospital sounds, normally background noise during the day, seemed amplified in the darkness. Beeping monitors, squeaking rubber soles on linoleum, distant conversations at the nurse's station. I checked my phone periodically. No new messages from my family, a few more work emails, a concerned text from Jessica asking why I had stood her up for dinner. I typed out a brief explanation and received an immediate response. OMG, are you okay? What hospital I can come visit tomorrow? Someone cared at least. Someone who was not even family had immediately offered to visit. I fell asleep finally around 4:00 a.m., my phone clutched in my hand, tear tracks drying on my face. 3 days in a hospital bed gives you a lot of time to think. Too much time, really. By day 3, post-accident, I had memorized every crack in the ceiling, every crease in the privacy curtain, every beep and whir of the machines monitoring my vital signs. I had also established a new normal. Wake up to Nurse Patricia checking vitals and administering pain medication. Breakfast from a plastic tray. Morning check-in with Dr. Lewis. Physical therapy evaluation. Lunch from another plastic tray. Awkward sponge bath. Afternoon soap operas on the tiny television mounted in the corner of the room. Dinner from yet another plastic tray. Evening meds. Fitful sleep. Repeat. My family had maintained minimal contact. My mother sent a morning text each day asking how I was feeling and promising they would visit soon. My father had called once, a brief 2-minute conversation, mostly consisting of questions about the accident itself and whether I had contacted my insurance company. Vanessa had sent a single message with 3 sad face emojis and, "Get better, sis." Meanwhile, the family group chat continued to document their lives without me. They had returned from Lake Geneva, but there were now photos of a family dinner at my parents' house. Vanessa had apparently cooked her famous lasagna. There were pictures of them playing cards afterward. My father unusually relaxed and smiling as he displayed a winning hand. Another evening, another family gathering I had not been invited to, despite being laid up in a hospital just 30 minutes away. I had stopped responding to their texts by day 3. What was the point? Their concern was performative at best, non-existent at worst. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their attention, their approval, their love, getting straight A's, graduating top of my class, landing a prestigious job, earning promotions, always thinking that the next achievement would be the one that made them see me, really see me. Now, lying in a hospital bed with no makeup, unwashed hair, and a body that felt broken beyond repair, I had to face some hard truths. No achievement would ever be enough. No success would ever make them love me the way they love Vanessa, effortlessly and completely. I had been running on a hamster wheel my entire life, exhausting myself trying to win a race that was rigged from the start. Dr. Marcus stopped by on the afternoon of day 3, a neurologist checking on my concussion symptoms. Unlike Dr. Lewis, he pulled up a chair and sat down. taking time to explain everything in detail and listen to my concerns. The good news is your follow-up CT scan shows no bleeding or swelling, he said. The bad news is concussion recovery is not linear. You may have good days and bad days. Headaches, dizziness, light sensitivity, and mood changes can persist for weeks or even months. Months. I had been thinking in terms of days, maybe a week or two at most. Recovery from traumatic injuries takes time. The broken bones will heal in 6 to 8 weeks, but the soft tissue damage and neurological symptoms often take longer. And that is just the physical recovery. Many patients experience psychological effects as well: depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress related to the accident. I cannot be out of commission for months, I said, panic rising in my throat. I have a job, responsibilities. Dr. Marcus nodded sympathetically. I understand, but pushing yourself too hard, too soon, can prolong your recovery. Do you have a support system, family, friends, who can help you through this? The question hit me like a physical blow. Did I have anyone? Really have anyone? I will figure it out, I said finally. After Dr. Marcus left, I stared at my phone, scrolling through my contacts. Hundreds of names. Business associates, clients, former classmates I had not spoken to in years. Few people I could genuinely call friends. I had been so focused on my career, on proving myself, that I had neglected the very human connections that make life worthwhile. I was contemplating this depressing reality when there was a knock at my door. Jessica from work stood there, holding a ridiculous bouquet of get-well balloons and a gift bag. You look terrible, she said with a grin, entering the room, which is actually better than I expected given what your car looks like. They showed us pictures at the office. Despite everything, I laughed. Thanks for the ego boost. Seriously, though, how are you? She asked, taking the visitor chair and placing the gift bag on my lap. I have been better, I admitted, opening the bag to find a paperback mystery novel, a luxuriously soft throw blanket, and a bag of my favorite chocolate-covered espresso beans. I figured hospital food probably sucks, and those thin blankets they give you are the worst. The book is because daytime television will rot your brain. Something about her thoughtfulness, so casual and yet so targeted to my actual needs, broke through the wall I had been building. To my horror, I burst into tears. Jessica looked alarmed. Did I say something wrong? Are you in pain? Should I get a nurse? I shook my head, unable to speak through the sobs. She handed me a tissue from the bedside table and waited patiently for me to regain my composure. I am sorry, I said finally. It is just, you are the only person who has visited me. My own family has not even bothered to come see me. Jessica's expression shifted from concern to incredulity. Are you serious? Not even your parents? They were at a spa weekend when it happened. They got back yesterday but still have not come. They keep saying they will visit soon, but I gestured helplessly. That is messed up, she said simply. I mean, if my kid was in the hospital, wild horses could not keep me away. Hearing someone else validate what I had been feeling was strangely cathartic. Maybe I was not crazy for expecting my family to show up for me in a crisis. Maybe I deserved better than what I had been accepting all these years. I brought some work stuff too, Jessica said, changing the subject with admirable tact. Nothing urgent, just updates on the Meridian project, so you will not be completely out of the loop when you get back, but only if you feel up to it. We spent the next hour going over work matters, a welcome distraction from my physical pain and emotional turmoil. Jessica had brought me up to speed on client developments, office gossip, and the temporary redistribution of my workload. She had even spoken to HR about short-term disability benefits and medical leave paperwork, things that had not even occurred to me in my painkiller haze. When she finally left, promising to return in a few days with more contraband chocolate, I felt something I had not experienced since waking up in the hospital. Genuine human connection. Jessica was not family, but she had shown more care and concern than the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I found myself questioning the value I had placed on family bonds that existed more in obligation than in action. Perhaps it was time to redefine what family meant to me, to create my own circle of people who showed up when it mattered. Perhaps it was time to stop seeking validation from those who had proven repeatedly they were incapable of giving it. By the 5th day in the hospital, I had made up my mind to discharge myself against medical advice. The physical pain had become more manageable, or perhaps I had just grown accustomed to it. The loneliness, however, was becoming unbearable. At least in my own apartment, I could wallow in my misery with the comfort of my own things around me, rather than the sterile impersonality of the hospital room. I had gone so far as to ask Nurse Patricia for the necessary paperwork when I noticed I was feeling unusually warm. At first, I attributed it to the emotional stress of making such a decision, but by mid-afternoon, there was no denying something was wrong. My skin felt hot to the touch, and a persistent headache had developed behind my eyes. When Patricia came in for my afternoon medication, she took one look at me and immediately checked my temperature. 102.3, she said, frowning. How long have you been feeling feverish? Just today, I said, suddenly too tired to keep my eyes open. I thought it was just stress. Patricia was already paging the doctor. One of your surgical sites might be infected. Dr. Lewis will want to start you on IV antibiotics right away. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Blood was drawn. Cultures were taken from the larger lacerations that had required stitches. A different type of pain medication was administered that made me feel like I was floating somewhere near the ceiling. In the midst of this medical crisis, I made the impulsive decision to remove myself from the family group chat. If they could not be bothered to visit me in the hospital while I was fighting off infection, then I did not need the constant reminder of their lives continuing without me. With shaking fingers, I tapped the Leave Group button and felt a momentary sense of liberation before the fever took hold again. At some point during the evening, my phone battery died. In my fevered state, I could not remember where I had put my charger, and I was too weak to search for it properly. The loss of my digital connection to the outside world should have panicked me, but instead it felt like a release. No more pretending. No more making excuses for people who had proven they did not care. Just me and the fever and the beeping machines. That night was the worst yet. My temperature spiked to 104, and I drifted in and out of consciousness. The fever brought vivid dreams, more like hallucinations really, all centered around themes of abandonment. I was a child again, calling for my parents in an empty house. I was at my high school graduation, scanning the audience for familiar faces and finding none. I was lying broken on the street after the accident, passers-by stepping around me without stopping to help. In the most vivid dream, I was at a family dinner. Everyone was talking and laughing, passing dishes, telling stories. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I tried to reach for the mashed potatoes, but my hand passed through the bowl like I was a ghost. I was there, but not there. Present, but unseen. Exactly as I had felt my entire life. I awoke, gasping, tears streaming down my face, to find Nurse Patricia holding my hand. The clock on the wall read 3:20 a.m. You were calling out in your sleep, she said gently. Bad dreams, I nodded, unable to speak through the tightness in my throat. Your fever is still high, but the antibiotics should start working soon. Try to rest. My family, I managed to croak. They will not come. Patricia squeezed my hand. I know, honey. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. But you are not alone. The whole nursing staff is rooting for you. Her simple kindness broke something open inside me. I cried then, really cried, for all the years of seeking approval that was always just out of reach. For the child who had believed that if she was just good enough, accomplished enough, perfect enough, she would finally be loved the way her sister was. For the woman lying in a hospital bed, realizing that some wounds cannot be healed with stitches and bandages. Patricia sat with me until I cried myself out, then helped me drink some water and adjust my position to ease the pressure on my ribs. Before she left, she plugged my phone into a charger she produced from her pocket. Hospital regulation chargers, she said with a wink. Work with any phone made in the last decade. I slept then, a deep, dreamless sleep, the kind that comes after emotional catharsis. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the window, and I felt measurably better. My head was clearer, the room no longer spinning when I moved. Dr. Lewis confirmed my fever had broken sometime during the night, though she wanted to continue the IV antibiotics for at least another 24 hours. It was mid-morning when I remembered my phone. Now fully charged, I turned it on to find 51 missed calls and twice as many text messages. Most were from my father, with the rest split between my mother and Vanessa. The most recent text, sent just 10 minutes earlier, was from my father. Call us back now, it is serious. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. They had ignored me in my time of need. Why should I respond to their emergency? but something in the phrasing, the uncharacteristic urgency from my usually stoic father, gave me pause. Despite everything, they were still my family. With a deep breath, I called my father back. He answered on the first ring. Amy, thank God. Where have you been? We have been trying to reach you for days. I am still in the hospital, I said flatly, where I have been since the accident almost a week ago. The accident none of you could be bothered to visit me for. There was a pause, then a strange sound I had never heard from my father before, a sob. Amy, your mother had a heart attack 3 days ago. She is in intensive care at Chicago Memorial, the same hospital you are in. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My mother, the steady presence who had always been the glue holding our family together, had suffered a heart attack. And she was here, in this very hospital, while I had been wallowing in self-pity just floors away. What? How? Is she okay? The questions tumbled out of me. It happened during dinner at our house. 1 minute she was laughing at something Vanessa said. The next she was clutching her chest and could not breathe. The ambulance got her to Chicago Memorial in time for the doctors to clear the blockage, but she has been in and out of consciousness. We have been here around the clock, taking shifts, sitting with her. My father's voice broke. We thought someone had told you. The hospital staff said they would notify you since you are a patient here too. The miscommunication would have been almost comical if it were not so tragic. My family thought I knew about my mother and was choosing not to visit her. I thought they knew about my condition and were choosing not to visit me. We had been in the same building for days, each feeling abandoned by the other. What room is she in? I asked, already reaching for the call button to summon a nurse. ICU room 12. Amy, she has been asking for you when she is lucid. We told her you must be busy with work and had not gotten our messages. The irony of that explanation was not lost on me. How many times had they assumed I was too busy with work to participate in family events? How many times had I used work as an excuse to avoid the pain of feeling like an outsider in my own family? I will be there as soon as I can, I said, ending the call as Nurse Patricia entered the room. Everything okay? Your heart rate monitor spiked, she said, glancing at the machines. My mother is in the ICU here. She had a heart attack 3 days ago and nobody told me. I need to see her. Patricia's eyes widened in surprise. That should not have happened. There are protocols for notifying family members, especially when they are in the same facility. Can you help me get to her? I cannot walk that far on my own yet. Patricia assessed me with a professional eye. Technically, you should not be out of bed for that long, with your injuries, but under the circumstances, let me see if I can arrange a wheelchair and an orderly to take you. What followed was a flurry of activity. Dr. Lewis was consulted and reluctantly gave permission for a brief visit. A wheelchair was procured. My IV was temporarily disconnected with a promise to reattach it upon my return. I was helped into a robe to cover the open-back hospital gown, my hair hastily brushed, my face washed. The journey to the ICU felt like crossing into another world, down the elevator from the general medical floor to the more somber, hushed environment of intensive care. The orderly, a kind young man named Luis, pushed my wheelchair slowly, mindful of the jostling effect on my injured ribs. Outside room 12, I paused to gather my courage. Through the glass panel in the door, I could see my father sitting beside a bed, his back to the door. Of Vanessa, there was no sign. Do you want me to come in with you? Luis asked. I shook my head. No, thank you. Can you come back in 30 minutes to take me back to my room? Of course. Just have the nurses call down when you are ready. With that, he opened the door for me, and I wheeled myself into the room. My father turned at the sound, his eyes widening in shock as he took in my appearance. I must have looked a sight, still bruised and bandaged, pale from blood loss and infection, sitting in a wheelchair with my leg extended in its cast. Amy, he said, as if not quite believing his eyes. Hi, Dad. Before he could respond, the bathroom door opened and Vanessa emerged. She looked terrible, with dark circles under her eyes, and her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She froze when she saw me. Oh my God, Amy, what happened to you? Car accident. Remember the one I texted you all about last week? The one none of you could be bothered to visit me for. My father had the grace to look ashamed. Vanessa just looked confused. But you never mentioned you were hurt this badly, she said. Your text just said you had an accident and were in the hospital for observation. We thought it was minor. And that makes it okay not to visit? To go on with your spa weekend and family dinners like nothing happened? The anger I had been suppressing for days came boiling to the surface. We did not know, my father said quietly. Your text did not convey the seriousness of your condition. And when we called the hospital, they would only say you were stable. You know how you always downplay everything, Amy. We thought if it was serious, you would have said so. It was the same old pattern. They assumed I was fine because I always pretended to be fine. I pretended to be fine because they never seemed to have room for my problems amid Vanessa's constant dramas and needs. A lifetime of miscommunication and false assumptions had led us to this moment, with my mother fighting for her life and the rest of us locked in our dysfunctional dance. "How is Mom?" I asked, deciding to set aside my grievances for the moment. My father's face crumpled. "The doctors say she is stable now, but it was touch and go for a while. She has significant damage to her heart muscle. They are talking about bypass surgery once she is stronger." I wheeled myself to the bedside, seeing my mother properly for the first time. She looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines similar to the ones in my own room. Her skin had a grayish tinge, and her breathing seemed labored despite the oxygen tubes in her nose. As if sensing my presence, her eyelids fluttered open. She looked confused for a moment, then focused on my face. Recognition dawned, followed by alarm. "Amy, what happened to you? Walter, why is Amy in a wheelchair?" Her voice was weak but insistent. "I was in a car accident last week, Mom. I am okay. Just some broken bones and cuts. I am actually a patient here, too, just a few floors up." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "No one told me. I have been asking for you, but they said you had not gotten the messages." She turned accusingly to my father. "You said she was busy with work." "We thought she was," my father defended weakly. "We did not know she was injured." "I texted everyone," I said. "I called and left voicemails. I specifically asked for someone to visit." Vanessa pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. "I never got a call. Just one text saying you were in for observation. And with Mom's heart attack, everything else just became less important." I finished for her, story of my life. The bitterness in my voice must have been evident because my mother reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong for someone in her condition. "Amy, that is not true. You have always been important." "Really? Then why has no one from this family visited me in nearly a week? Why did I have to find out about your heart attack by accident? Why am I always the afterthought, the one whose achievements are acknowledged with a nod while Vanessa's every minor accomplishment gets a celebration?" The questions that had been building inside me for years came pouring out, unstoppable now that the dam had broken. My father looked stricken. Vanessa had tears streaming down her face. My mother just held my hand tighter. "We need to talk about this," my mother said. "All of us. But not now, not here." She was right, of course. This was neither the time nor the place for the long overdue conversation our family needed to have. But the pressure in my chest, a combination of physical pain from my injuries and emotional pain from years of feeling overlooked, became suddenly overwhelming. I pulled my hand away and wheeled myself toward the door. I should get back to my room. The doctor only gave me permission for a short visit. "Amy, wait," my father called. But I was already pushing through the door, nearly colliding with a nurse entering the room. The hallway spun around me, black spots dancing at the edges of my vision. The emotional confrontation had depleted what little energy I had, and I suddenly could not remember how to get back to the elevator. I tried to wheel myself forward, but my arms felt like lead. The last thing I remember is someone shouting for help as the floor rushed up to meet me. I regained consciousness in a hospital bed, though not my own. I was in a small observation room off the ICU, with a different set of monitors beeping around me. A nurse I did not recognize was adjusting my IV. "Welcome back," she said when she noticed my open eyes. "You gave everyone quite a scare collapsing like that. Your blood pressure dropped dangerously low." "My family," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "Do they know where I am?" "Your sister is right outside. She has been pacing a hole in the floor, waiting for you to wake up. Should I send her in?" I nodded, too exhausted to speak further. Moments later, Vanessa appeared in the doorway, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "Can I come in?" "Free country," I muttered. She approached the bed slowly, as if afraid I might bolt if she moved too quickly. "The doctors say you pushed yourself too hard coming down to see Mom, that with your injuries and the infection, you should not have been out of bed at all." "Someone had to make an effort to keep this family connected," I said, then immediately regretted the pettiness of the remark. This cycle of hurt and recrimination was getting us nowhere. To my surprise, Vanessa did not fire back with a defensive comment. Instead, she pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. Her posture slumped in a way I had rarely seen. You are right, she said quietly. You have always been the one trying to keep us connected, even when we make it hard. The simple acknowledgement, so unexpected, left me momentarily speechless. I owe you an apology, Amy. Several, actually. Vanessa looked down at her hands, twisting a tissue between her fingers. I should have visited you after your accident. I should have taken your text more seriously. I should have been a better sister all these years. Why weren't you? The question came out more vulnerable than accusatory. Vanessa was silent for a long moment. Would you believe me if I said I was jealous of you? I barked out a laugh that sent pain shooting through my ribs. Jealous of me? That is rich, coming from the golden child. Is that how you see me? She looked genuinely surprised. The golden child? Vanessa, our entire lives, you have been the one Mom and Dad adore, the one whose achievements get celebrated while mine get footnoted. You are the one they make time for, the one they check in with, the one they actually seem to like having around. And you have been the one who escaped, she countered, the one with the fancy career in the city, the one who does not need them, the one who is too important and busy for family dinners and birthdays. I work 60-hour weeks because I have been trying to prove myself my entire life, to them, to everyone. Meanwhile, you just effortlessly get their love and attention without even trying. Effortlessly? Vanessa's voice rose. Amy, I live 30 minutes from their house. I have dinner with them twice a week. I call Mom every day. I plan the holidays and birthdays you often miss. I stay in Riverside, working at a salon I hate because I know they count on having me nearby. There is nothing effortless about it. Her words stopped me cold. I had never considered that Vanessa's place in the family might be as much about proximity and availability as preference, that she might have made sacrifices to maintain her position, just as I had made sacrifices to establish my independence. They talk about you all the time, you know, she continued more softly. Dad brags to his golf buddies about his daughter, the marketing executive. Mom keeps a file of all the articles and campaigns your firm produces trying to spot your influence. They are proud of you, Amy. They just do not know how to show it, because you scare them a little. I scare them? The concept was so foreign I could barely process it. You have always been so self-sufficient, so driven. Even as a kid, you never seemed to need anyone. When you moved to Chicago and built this whole life without us, they took it as confirmation that you were better off without them holding you back. They did not visit you after your accident because they genuinely thought you would find their presence an inconvenience, an interruption to your important life. The door opened before I could respond, and my father entered, looking older than I had ever seen him. The nurses said I could join you, he said, hovering uncertainly at the foot of the bed, if that is okay. I nodded, my mind still reeling from Vanessa's revelations. He took the chair on the opposite side of the bed from Vanessa, his posture as uncomfortable as hers had been moments before. This was a man who ran a successful business, who made decisions affecting dozens of employees daily. Yet he looked utterly lost, sitting beside his injured daughter. Your mother is sleeping, he said, as if I had asked. The doctors say it is good for her healing. Dad, I began, then stopped, unsure where to even start unraveling the decades of misunderstanding between us. He surprised me by speaking first. I have not been a good father to you, Amy. I realize that now. The admission, so unexpected from this proud, stoic man, brought tears to my eyes. I never knew how to connect with you, he continued. You were so smart, so independent from such a young age, so much like me that it frightened me sometimes. I thought pushing you to achieve would show you I cared, that I saw your potential. Instead, I made you feel like you were never quite good enough. And I was easier, Vanessa added softly. I was more like Mom, more open with my feelings, more obviously needy. You knew how to deal with that. My father nodded, looking ashamed. I fell into the trap of giving more attention to the squeaky wheel while assuming the quiet one was fine on her own. It was lazy parenting, and you deserve better. The conversation that followed was unlike any our family had ever had. Painful truths were spoken aloud for the first time. My father admitted that his own father had shown love through achievement and approval, a pattern he had unconsciously replicated with me. Vanessa confessed to deliberately seeking our parents' attention to fill the void left by her own insecurities, her fear that without their constant validation, she had little to offer the world. And I acknowledged my own role in the dysfunction, how I had used work and independence as shields against potential rejection, how I had assumed the worst intentions behind every parental oversight or slight. I needed you to show up for me, I said finally, giving voice to the core wound that had been festering for years. Not just when it is convenient, not just when there is nothing more exciting happening. I needed to know that I matter enough for you to rearrange your lives sometimes, the way you do for Vanessa. You do matter, my father said, taking my hand in both of his. You have always mattered, and I am so sorry we made you doubt that. We can do better, Vanessa added, all of us, starting now. There, in that small hospital room, with machines beeping and antiseptic smells in the air, something shifted in our family dynamic. The walls I had built to protect myself began to crumble, revealing the vulnerable, wanting heart beneath. The roles we had all played for so long, comfortable in their familiarity, if not their healthiness, began to transform into something more authentic, more balanced. We talked about practical changes too. Weekly family dinners that would be scheduled around my availability as well as Vanessa's. A family text chain specifically for important news and updates, separate from the casual group chat. A commitment to therapy, both individual and as a family, once my mother was recovered enough to participate. By the time the nurses insisted my father and sister leave so I could rest, I felt simultaneously exhausted and lighter than I had in years. The road ahead would not be easy. Decades of dysfunctional patterns cannot be undone in a single conversation, no matter how cathartic. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt a cautious hope that my family might become a source of support rather than stress, of love rather than longing. As I drifted towards sleep, I thought about Nurse Patricia's words from days earlier. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. What she had not said, what I was just beginning to understand, was that sometimes those same people, if they are willing to face hard truths and do the difficult work of change, can also be the ones who help us heal. 2 months after what we now refer to as the hospital week, I sat on my parents' back porch, watching the summer twilight settle over their well-kept yard. My leg, still in a walking boot, but free of the full cast, was propped on a cushioned ottoman. My ribs had healed enough that deep breaths no longer caused stabbing pain. The physical scars from the accident were fading, turning from angry red to pale pink. My mother sat beside me, a light blanket over her legs despite the warm evening. Her recovery had been slower than mine, her body working to adjust to the medication regimen that would be part of her life moving forward. The bypass surgery had been successful, but the cardiologist had been clear. Significant lifestyle changes were necessary to prevent a recurrence. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, reaching over to pat my hand. "Just thinking about how much has changed since the accident," I replied. "Sometimes I think about how differently things might have turned out if you had left the hospital that day like you were planning to. Or if your infection had not forced you to stay long enough for us to find each other," she added. So many little coincidences that led to something important. That was my mother, always looking for the silver lining, the purpose behind the pain. I had inherited my father's pragmatism more than her optimism, but I was learning to appreciate her perspective. Inside the house, I could hear my father and Vanessa arguing good-naturedly about the proper way to grill vegetables. It was Tuesday, our new standing family dinner night. I had left work at 5 o'clock sharp, something that would have been unthinkable before the accident, and driven the 30 minutes to Riverside. Next week, they would come to my apartment in the city, part of our new rotation system. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, checking if we were still on for our weekend movie plans. She had become a true friend during my recovery, visiting regularly and helping me navigate the return to work with my ongoing physical limitations. My boss had been surprisingly accommodating as well, allowing me to work from home 2 days a week and adjusting my client load until I was back to full strength. Another surprise had been the continued friendship with Nurse Patricia, who had given me her personal number upon my discharge. We met for coffee monthly, her practical wisdom and no-nonsense approach to life a balm to my sometimes overthinking mind. The most significant change, however, had been in our family dynamics. True to our hospital room commitments, we had all begun therapy, both individually and together. My father, the most resistant initially, had become an unexpected advocate for the process, after seeing how it helped him recognize and address patterns he had never questioned before. Our first family session had been revelatory. With the guidance of Dr. Bennett, a family therapist with 30 years of experience, we had explored the origins of our dysfunctional communication patterns. My father's emotional withholding stemmed from his own cold, achievement-oriented upbringing. My mother's peacemaking at all costs came from growing up with alcoholic parents whose fights had terrified her. Vanessa's need for constant validation and attention originated in early school struggles that had made her feel intellectually inferior, especially compared to me. And my drive for independence and achievement, my belief that I needed to earn love through accomplishment, had roots in being the firstborn during my parents' financially struggling early years. I had absorbed their stress and anxiety, feeling responsible for being low maintenance when resources were scarce. None of us had created these patterns intentionally. Recognizing their origins helped us extend grace to ourselves and each other as we worked to establish healthier ways of relating. "Mom, Dad, dinner is ready," Vanessa called from inside, interrupting my reflections. My father appeared at the patio door. "Need help getting up?" he asked, the question straightforward, without the implication that my needs were a burden. A subtle but important shift in his communication style. "I have got it, but thanks," I replied carefully, rising and testing my weight on the booted foot before reaching for my cane. Around the dinner table, the conversation flowed more naturally than it had in my memory. Each of us practiced the skills we were learning in therapy: active listening, I statements rather than accusations, checking assumptions rather than jumping to conclusions, making space for different perspectives rather than insisting on a single narrative. "I had my performance review today," I mentioned as we finished the main course. Before the accident, I might have downplayed the importance or not mentioned it at all, assuming no one would be interested. "How did it go?" my father asked, giving me his full attention. "Really well, actually. They are pleased with how I have handled the transition back to work, and they want me to lead the new healthcare client acquisition team." "That sounds like a big opportunity," my mother said encouragingly. "It is more responsibility, but also more flexibility in my schedule, and healthcare marketing would be a new challenge." "You will be amazing at it," Vanessa said sincerely. "And selfishly, I am glad about the flexibility part. It means we get to see more of you." The simple acknowledgement that they wanted me around, that my presence was valued rather than tolerated, still took me by surprise sometimes. It should not have been revolutionary to hear my family express such basic affection, but old wounds heal slowly and old beliefs die hard. After dinner, as we cleared the table together, my father mentioned that he had been researching accessibility modifications for their home. "Just some simple things," he explained. "Wider doorways, a ramp at the back entrance, grab bars in the guest bathroom. So when you visit during your recovery, or if Mom has mobility issues in the future, the house will be more accommodating." The thoughtfulness of the gesture, the long-term planning that assumed my continued presence in their lives, touched me deeply. 2 months ago, I would have been lucky to get a text asking how my injury was healing. Now my father was remodeling parts of their home with my needs in mind. Later that evening, as Vanessa drove me back to my apartment in the city, we continued a conversation that had become something of a tradition during our newly established sister time. "What was your win this week?" she asked, a question we had started asking each other as a way to celebrate small victories and practice gratitude. "I walked a full block without the cane yesterday," I said. "First time since the accident. My physical therapist was thrilled. How about you?" "I finally told Derek I am not taking any more 6 a.m. appointments at the salon," she said, referring to her boss. "I realized I was saying yes to those early slots because I was afraid of disappointing him, even though they were wreaking havoc on my sleep schedule. Setting that boundary felt really good." We shared a smile, both recognizing the personal growth reflected in that simple act of self-advocacy. The sister who had once seemed like a stranger to me, or worse, a rival, was becoming one of my closest confidants. As we pulled up to my building, Vanessa put the car in park but left the engine running. "Same time next week," she confirmed, "but at your place, and I am bringing the dessert." "Sounds perfect," I said, gathering my cane and purse. "Tell Mom and Dad I will call tomorrow." "Will do. Love you, sis." "Love you too." The exchange, so casual and yet so meaningful, was still new enough to bring a lump to my throat. I made my way slowly up to my apartment, reflecting on the strange, painful journey that had brought me to this place of cautious healing. The accident that had nearly taken my life had ultimately given me something precious: the truth. The truth about my family's love, imperfect but real. The truth about my own worth, not tied to achievement or approval. The truth that sometimes our deepest wounds can become doorways to our most meaningful connections if we have the courage to step through them. I settled into my apartment, still bearing the signs of my gradual recovery. A shower chair in the bathroom, grab bars installed by my father on a weekend visit, meal prep containers in the refrigerator prepared by my mother and Vanessa to ensure I ate properly during the week. Physical evidence of something I had been seeking my entire life. Proof that I mattered, that my needs were worth accommodating, that my presence in their lives was important enough to rearrange schedules and routines for. It had taken a near tragedy to break through the walls of misunderstanding and assumed rejection that had separated us for so long. But in that breaking, something new and stronger had begun to form, a family bond based not on obligation or performance, but on honest communication and genuine care. If you are watching this and recognize your own family in our dysfunction, know that change is possible. It takes courage to speak your truth, to set boundaries, to ask directly for what you need rather than hoping others will somehow intuit it. It takes vulnerability to admit when you have been wrong, to apologize sincerely, to change patterns that may have defined your relationships for decades. The work is hard, and some days it feels like we are sliding back into old habits, but the reward is a relationship built on truth rather than illusion, on actual love rather than the performance of love. And that is worth every difficult conversation, every uncomfortable therapy session, every moment of painful self-examination. Have you ever had to confront painful truths in your family? What helped you navigate those difficult conversations? Share your experience in the comments below. And do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of healing and growth. Remember, sometimes our deepest wounds become our greatest teachers, if we have the courage to listen to what they are trying to tell us. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and I wish you healing in your own.